Well, what an exciting morning we all had today watching this Nintendo Direct, the last Switch 1 Focus Direct before the big Switch 2 Direct just next week. And as a lot of us had theorized, as I had discussed in my video yesterday, we absolutely saw brand new footage for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Beautiful, stunning, jaw-dropping, very impressive footage, a new trailer, some details, and just so much to sink our teeth into when it comes to Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. I could not be happier with what we saw today. It is worth noting that outside of the Metroid Prime 4 Beyond stuff, which is really what this video is about, I do just want to say that as far as the full Direct, personally, I didn't find it very interesting or cool or good. There just wasn't a lot of games for me. Actually, there was pretty much no games for me, of course, except for Metroid, which means I still loved the Direct simply because of this one trailer. And there was also that X-Men game that they announced at the end that I think looks fan-freaking-tastic, takes me back to the 90s. I am all about that. But in general, I think that this is really what we should have expected for this Direct. Less than a week before the Switch 2 Direct next week. Like, Nintendo is about to transition all of their messaging and marketing into the next generation, starting on April 2nd next week. So this was their last time to address us about all things Switch 1. Obviously, Switch 1 games and announcements will still continue and be a part of Directs going forward for probably the next 2 or 3 years, but it's mostly going to be comprised of next generation Switch 2 stuff. This, I think, was their last time to just get out the final announcements, mostly third party, a lot of indie, smaller tier, cozy games, stuff like that. This was their last opportunity to just kind of dump that stuff out to the world. So they did that, combined with a new Metroid Prime 4 trailer, and that's what this Direct was. So there's nothing wrong with it. I'll just say that I think pretty much all of it kind of sucked, except for the Metroid stuff. So with that out of the way, let's break down and dive in to this Metroid Prime 4 gameplay. There is a ton of stuff to discuss. So what I'm going to do is just do a quick rewatch with you guys and just discuss in real time as we watch through the trailer. It's over 3 minutes long. It was a tasty morsel of Metroid Prime 4, even though they still left a lot of questions on the table, which is great. And obviously we might see some of this next week at the Switch 2 thing, and I'll discuss that afterwards. But let's go ahead and quickly just rewatch the trailer, and I'll sort of give some of my commentary on it as we go through it. Okay, let's go ahead and watch this new Metroid Prime 4 footage right now. So these opening shots are jaw-dropping, and it's as soon as I saw them, it's like, okay, I know exactly what we're looking at. This looks like better footage, better images of the landscape from the initial reveal trailer. I love all these different locations. So this right here matches the little kind of energy symbol sphere thing that we saw her walking away from at the end of the reveal trailer last year, where they said 2025. Now, I like that we start to get some narration. This was a really great surprise. Viewros. So we've got a new planet. It's named Viewros. As far as we can see from this trailer, this is the only planet we're on. I love that. He also references, the narrator references the big tree that we can see in the background we saw from the prior one. This is huge right here. We've got new lore. We have a new ancient race, Ancient Lamorn. That is massive. I'm going to be talking about that. We see a nest of an enemy. Of course, you can use your charge beam to blow that up to find a new path forward. She looks fantastic. We're going to be talking about the symbol in the middle of her helmet. These enemies right here remind me of the Reptlicus, which are found on Brio in Metroid Prime 4. I doubt that they're the same, but they just look very similar. Same kind of design. Some more action. Some more action on a bridge that just looks beautiful with all the epic buildings in the background. Here is where we're introduced to the psychic abilities. So this is really great. To me, this is a callback to the Aeon abilities that she had in Metroid Samus Returns on the 3DS. A lot to look into here. This is a really cool new mechanic. You know this is going to be used heavily for puzzle solving and for advancing forward, which I'm very excited for. This is the coolest thing. To be able to control this shot. I don't know if that's a specific psychic ability ammo shot or if it's your regular beam. Obviously, she can, you know, manipulate things like with telekinesis, like that, like we were just seeing there. Here we're seeing another one of these local inhabitant alien races, as far as what I can tell from this trailer. I already forget the name. The Lamorn? I'll have to look at it again. More psychic ability stuff. So we're going to look into this because it just seems like there's a lot of wreckage that she's finding throughout the world. This boss reminds me of Flagra from the original Metroid Prime. And so, yeah, ton of stuff to look into. No official date. 2025 is all they tell us, which makes me think Switch 2 is coming. Switch 2 version is coming. They say that they're putting their faith in her. They refer to her as the Chosen One, which is a callback to the original Metroid Prime. This was a big moment. I thought maybe this was like Dark Samus coming back. And then I realized, oh, like the color showed me that it was more like a red and it wasn't actually Dark Samus. So, man, some really, really great stuff there. So much to dive into. I did the best I could to kind of keep up my conversation at the speed of the trailer there. But they gave us a lot of information. I don't even know where to start first. Let's start simple. Let's talk about the date, okay, before we get into the good stuff. They say coming 2025. So as I expected, they showed us more Metroid Prime 4 today, because why wouldn't they? It's the last Switch 1 Focus Direct. It's the biggest known first-party Switch game by Nintendo that we know that they're making is Metroid Prime 4. So of course it was going to be here, and it was. No Metroid Primes 2 or 3. I'll make a different video about that. I'm not going to get into that today. But I knew we were going to see Prime 4 today. And I certainly expected a date. I think most of us did. And they didn't give us an official date. Now, it's nice that they doubled down on 2025. So, okay, great. Doesn't seem like it's slipping to next year. But does that not mean that we can expect a Switch 2 version of this? And with the Switch 2 Direct next week, maybe they were willing to let us sit with the pain for a mere 6 days of not knowing the official date, just so that they could give us more footage, more information, and an official date for a Switch and a Switch 2 release next week at the April 2nd Direct. That's the only thing that seems to make sense in my brain, right? So that's what I'm going on for now. I expect we'll get a date at the Switch 2 event next week, which makes me very excited because I would love to see a definitive edition, even better looking version of this game on the Switch 2. And I started to think that maybe we weren't going to get that cross-gen release of the game, and while it's still not confirmed, the fact that they didn't give us a date 6 days before the Switch 2 event next week makes me think that there is still a great chance that we're going to get a cross-gen release. And so that's my takeaway from the lack of date. Now let's move on to my favorite takeaway, personally, that I have from what I think we can glean from this trailer. And I referenced it as I watched it. I talked about it in my reaction earlier. I feel like this is essentially telling us that this game will take place on just one planet, which is, as I've discussed several times over the past 8 years since this game was first revealed. That mirrors what Metroid Primes 1 and 2 did. Okay, Metroid Prime 1 is on Talon 4, Metroid Prime 2 is on Planet Aether. And as I've said for the past several years, that's what I personally wanted from a new Metroid Prime game. I appreciate that Metroid Prime 3 introduced the idea of, flying to different planets, and your unique environments were relegated towards only flying her gunship from planet to planet. And that was cool, and it worked well for that game. Metroid Prime Hunters did the same thing, by the way. And I think that it's fine. And I really do, I of course love Metroid Prime 3, I love Metroid Prime Hunters, it's all good, but there was something special to me about knowing that Samus just takes herself to one giant location. Talon 4, Planet Aether, there's something happening on that planet, there are local inhabitant races unique to that planet that engages Samus in the plight of that planet, and there are different locations and different environments based on where on the planet you go. And I think that made for a more compelling location in those two games than it did in Metroid Prime 3. And so in Metroid Prime 4, we're introduced to planet Viewros, which is a really kind of awkward name to say, but that's what it is. It's planet Viewros, and it looks fantastic. Visually, I love the... I mean, it's got this incredible architecture. It's got this lush, dense forest. It's got these weird, like, sky temple looking things. Elements that looks like locations we saw in Metroid Prime 1, like locations we saw in Metroid Prime 3. It echoes a lot of that. And I can't wait to kind of peel back the layers of this planet and see where we're going to go. How many different environments, what kind of locations, what kind of enemies, what kind of lore are we going to discover. I think this is the perfect way to design a fourth Metroid Prime game. Now, we have to talk about these statues that Samus scans, and the fact that they reference what I can only assume, and I've mentioned several times, is the local alien race unique to planet Viewros, right? And they're called the Ancient Lamorn. I don't know how to pronounce it, so Lamorn is just what I'm going to go with for now until we hear it pronounced out loud by someone like at Nintendo or Retro. So the Lamorn, as far as I can tell, are the local inhabitants, okay? And we see later in the trailer that they refer to Samus as the Chosen One. They are putting their faith and their trust in her to help them with whatever the plight of this game is going to be. To me, this mirrors heavily the Luminoth on Planet Aether from Metroid Prime 2. In Metroid Prime 2, Samus comes across Umos, who's like the leader or the instigating local Luminoth to Planet Aether, who greets Samus at the temple grounds and says, we need your help because of the division of the planet and the light and the dark, and we're at threat from the evil Ing from Dark Aether. And that whole plot and story is set off by Umos describing it to Samus and saying, we need your help. And that's a very important pivotal scene early on in Metroid Prime 2. And in this trailer, we see what I assume is an Ancient Lamorn character or figure talking to Samus, and this person, this character, is going to tell Samus, you need to help us. You're the Chosen One. We need your help to solve whatever's happening on our planet, on Viewros. And I think that it's really cool to see what I think is a bit of a callback to that structure of Metroid Prime 2 and that introduction of a local alien race. Just like the Chozo existed in the original Metroid Prime, but they were no longer on Talon 4 at the time. We actually thought they might have been extinct at that time. We've since learned that that's not the truth. So they weren't really present in that game, but their lore and their architecture and their statues were. Whereas in Metroid Prime 2, you actively interact with Umos and the Luminoth characters, even at the very end of the game. And I think that's going to be what happens in Metroid Prime 4 with the Lamorn characters. And again, the whole thing between going to one location, one planet, and having a local alien race that is going to be a part of your journey and the story and the issue you're trying to solve, it is very much a combination of Metroid Primes 1 and 2, in my opinion, and I love everything about that. I discussed over the years how Metroid Prime 3, it was cool to be able to go to different locations, but in a weird twist of fate, Metroid Prime 3 had way more planets and locations than Metroid Primes 1 and 2 did. But at the same time, the way the maps were designed in Metroid Prime 3, to me, they felt smaller, they felt even more corridor-driven, and it feels like there was less real estate to just walk across and explore in Metroid Prime 3, despite going to like 4 or 5 different planets and locations in that game. Whereas in Metroid Primes 1 and 2, you're in one planet in each game. You never go into frickin' space at all. You're just on that planet, and despite being on that singular planet, it feels like the maps are bigger. It feels like the rooms and the environments and the locations are bigger. It feels like there is a lot more real estate to explore and to just walk across in those two games. So it's weird how the design of the game with more locations felt, in my opinion, smaller and a little bit more claustrophobic by comparison. Not necessarily a bad thing, because again, Prime 3 is a fantastic game, but it is one of the reasons why it's my least favorite of the 3 Prime console games. If I were to rank them, it's Metroid Prime 1, then Prime 2, then Prime 3, right? Prime 3 would be my least favorite. And in this game, I'm hoping that being on one planet is going to allow for more real estate to traverse and to explore and to discover things in. So that gets me really excited, not to mention whatever the story is with this ancient Lamorn race of beings that are local to planet Viewros. And how this is going to relate to Sylux is an interesting thing. We've had no Sylux in this trailer, so there's a lot of mystery on what's happening with all of that stuff. But I love that this feels like A lot of locations and concepts taken from Prime 3, but a lot more of it seems to be taken from Metroid Primes 1 and 2, and that gets me very excited. As I referenced, we see these four-armed creatures that Samus fights, and they do remind me, just visually, just to say this again, visually they look just like the Reptlicus characters. I think there's 2 or 3 different versions of those enemies on planet Brio in Metroid Prime 3. And so I just thought that it was very interesting to see enemies that just kind of, from a design standpoint, look very similar to those. Now, let's talk about the psychic abilities. This is a huge change. This is a huge reveal in this trailer. This is going to be one of the main gameplay hooks. She has a psychic telekinesis ability to do all sorts of things. She can grab things and move them with their mind. She can grab these little orbs and use them almost as keys in these Lamorn, I keep forgetting. Every time I'm not reading the name in front of me, I forget what they're called. The Laminor? Anyway, the local race, the statues, she's able to use these things and open doors and probably activate switches or activate mechanisms using this psychic ability. She's controlling her shot. So that's going to be great. She can slow down time and control her shots to do probably not only just to fight enemies. I bet that there will be certain puzzles and mechanisms you might activate using this ability as well. All of this stuff feels very retro, very Metroid Prime puzzle solvey. And I mentioned this when we were rewatching the trailer together. It also kind of feels like the Aeon abilities that you get in Metroid Samus Returns on the 3DS. Like, they're not the exact same, but the introduction of Aeon abilities was kind of a new thing in Samus Returns, and now in Prime 4, we're getting psychic abilities. So they're starting to toy with this idea a little bit in these games. Something I wonder might be happening with these psychic abilities is if, in a sense, they might be replacing the need to switch visors in Metroid Prime 4, or at least to switch to multiple visors. She's obviously going to have her scan visor, so I'm sure you'll have that. But outside of that, it's like turning on these psychic abilities might act functionally the same way using the different visors operated in prior games. I don't know if that makes sense. It's just kind of like it's just an idea that I have in my head, because it looks like the way her vision changes, and I'm sure based on which psychic ability you're going to turn on and activate, maybe you have a different view of the world, and that's very similar to how the different visors throughout the first 3 games would operate. And so it's just an idea. Maybe I'm not right on this, maybe I'm way off base, but I just wanted to bring it up that conceptually and as a gameplay mechanic, I just wonder if they're kind of doing something similar to how the visors operated with these psychic abilities in a first-person Metroid Prime game. So just a thought. Jumping ahead a little bit here, we see more psychic abilities being used. It's worth calling out the Mochtroids. So we once again see a Mochtroid, not a Metroid. You have to kind of slow it down to see, because it zips at the screen super fast. So in real time, it's like really hard to notice. But it appears to be another Mochtroid. Now, they were seen behind Sylux in the initial reveal trailer. So clearly, this is maybe the one connection, possibly, to Sylux that we get in this trailer, because I feel like he's probably using or cloning Mochtroids in an attempt to recreate Metroids, potentially. I mean, who knows? This is still one of the biggest mysteries about the game, is the context of Sylux in this game, as well as what the other story and threat is going to be, and how Mochtroids and or Metroids feed into this game, as well as where in time this game takes place. That's still technically up for debate, although seeing this trailer, it kind of makes me think that we are just going to be following directly after Metroid Prime 3. It could be too early to know that for sure, but I just wanted to bring that up. And so, yeah, it looks like maybe the Metroid combines with this other enemy. Then we get this boss fight, Carvex, and this looks very much like the Flagra fight from the first Metroid Prime game. So just, from a design and a visual standpoint and a conceptual standpoint, it's kind of calling back to Metroid Prime 1 there. Okay, and of course we have to talk about the suits, okay? So at the very end, we see this new suit that, as I mentioned, when I watched this in real time, I couldn't see that it was like a reddish color or a different color at all until like the lights really went over it and revealed the color. I've seen some other reactions, and a lot of people were able to tell right away that I guess it was red, and so they knew what it was. I thought it was maybe Dark Samus, because I wanted to believe for a long time that Dark Samus would have something to do with this game. But it's not Dark Samus. It definitely appears to be just Samus getting a new suit. And visually, it kind of looks like the light suit that we see in Metroid Prime 2 as well. She gets that at the very end of the game. So, very, very cool to see, even though the color is different. Like, the general sleeker, rounder design looks very much like the light suit. Also, it's worth calling out, in the beginning of the trailer, the first time we see her, this is another point where my color blindness came into play. I thought she had these blue lights all over her all over her suit, but I've seen some other people call out in some comments that I guess it's purple. And I don't see purple. I just can't see purple, so it looks blue to me, but I guess it's like a purple on top of her orange suit, so that's interesting. Just another thing from a design standpoint that I find kind of cool. And we also have to talk about the fact that she has this, like, jewel or some sort of diamond or thing in the center of her helmet that almost looks like a third eye. So I don't know if there's, like, some sort of allegory they're trying to get at there, like, with the psychic abilities, you open up your third eye, and so her helmet reflects that. But I do feel that this thing in the middle of her helmet has to do with the psychic abilities. My general prediction when it comes to this is that initially I thought that maybe only once you get the psychic abilities does this happen, like maybe your helmet morphs or changes or something. I think I mentioned that in my reaction. But watching it a few more times and thinking about it a little bit more, I think what might be happening instead is that maybe this thing is her connection to psychic abilities, and that happens at the beginning of the game, and it's as she learns, maybe from the Galactic Federation or from whatever she learns, she needs to go to planet Viewros to solve the problem that is happening on that planet. She's given the psychic ability. She's given an upgrade to her suit or an upgrade to her helmet, and it has this thing in the center of it, and this allows her to tap into psychic abilities, and then she's sent on her journey and lands on this planet and has it the entire length of her journey. Think of how she's given the PED suit in the beginning of Metroid Prime 3 so that she has access to those phase-on powers throughout the entire game. Now, she upgrades them throughout the game, but by the time she starts her journey and you get after the opening section on Norian, the Galactic Federation gives her a new phase-on suit to control the phase-on corruption she's going through, and it allows her to tap into phase-on abilities. And so maybe after the opening section in Prime 4, she'll be given this upgrade or this psychic ability or something that allows her to use them, and her helmet reflects it. And so that's my running theory right now on what's happening with her helmet and why I think it's probably tied to the psychic abilities. Also, probably last thing for now, and I'll end up making plenty of more videos about this stuff, but I don't have infinite time. So the last thing I want to call out is in this opening shot of Samus, she kind of appears out of this little, like, Terminator-like orb of light. And this is similar to what we see at the end of the first trailer, like I mentioned, where she's walking away from this thing. This, to me, is one of two things. More than likely, it's just indicative of a warp. I bet you can warp or fast travel around the planet to different locations. And so my main assumption is that this is just the animation and what we see happen as she warps around the planet. That's probably what it is. The other kind of more exciting prospect is if this game is playing with time travel in any way, maybe this is what happens as she warps between different points in time. As I've also referenced in the past, the same way in Metroid Prime 2, to draw another comparison to that game, she uses the light and dark gates to travel between light aether and dark aether. Maybe this is what happens when she travels between one point in time and another point in time. I don't know if that's what's happening, but it's just an idea. It's a possible theory. And so I wanted to put it out there. To me, it's one of two things. It's just fast traveling around the planet, or it's warping between 2 points in time. So, I think I've gotten out a lot of my initial thoughts and my initial breakdowns and takeaways from this. Most important things to me, just to recap everything, we seem to be on one planet, which I love. We seem to have a local alien race that needs Samus to do something for her. I love that as well. And maybe there's time travel, maybe there's warp points. We have psychic abilities introduced, and I think that her suit will reflect that. We do not see Sylux. We do not have a confirmed date. We don't even know why Metroid Prime is the title of this game, if there's any reference to Prime or Dark Samus or anything in this game. Those are basically really my initial takeaways so far, and it's incredibly exciting. I love everything that we've seen. Actually, one more thing I did want to touch on that I didn't remember to talk about in the video is going back to these ancient Lamorn statues. If you look at this scan entry and what it says ancient Lamorn sculpture carved from a single stone with identical dimensions to similar statues. A receptacle for a psychic mote is built into its forehead. This is important to me because this tells me that using psychic abilities to find these psychic motes wherever they might be in the world and then put it into these statues is probably how you're going to progress into new areas and new environments in the game. I think that the backtracking in many senses is going to come from running into a door that you can't get across or a passage you can't get through. One of these statues is going to be here, and it's going to be like, oh, you got to go find the psychic mote that fits this door, go grab it, bring it back here. Once you put it into the statue, the door is going to open, and now you've entered a new part of the game. And it's even kind of referenced by the narration if you watch the trailer, actually. So this, to me, is... I draw so many comparisons to Metroid Prime 2 in this. This, to me, is similar to what I think they're called the translator door or the translator scans in Metroid Prime 2, where it's those little holographic scans. Some of them have lore. Other ones are those little translator versions where you need to have progressed a certain part into the game to be able to open that translator door and access a new part of Planet Aether. And I feel like that's what this thing is referencing here. It's probably going to be the same kind of traversal and the same kind of backtracking based on these statues and these psychic motes you have to find. Or even think of like the Sky Temple keys also from Metroid Prime 2. It's really like, here near the end, the main thing I have to take away from this is how much Metroid Prime 2 inspiration I'm getting from this. Like I said, there's inspiration from all the Metroid Prime games, don't get me wrong. But I feel like the game I keep finding more homages and references to, more than the other ones, is Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. So we'll see if that's the case, but I find it interesting and super, super exciting. So this is a very long video because I have so much to say because it's Metroid and it's all I care about in the world. So now we wait to see, are we going to get a cross-gen release and an official release date announced next week at the Switch 2 event? That remains to be seen, but I certainly think so, given that they didn't give us a date, even though they did double down on 2025, which is great news. So these are my initial takeaways. I'll have more follow-up videos. I'll form more opinions and find more things to break down and discuss as time goes on. This is just my initial reaction right after seeing the trailer this morning. So exciting. Loved what we saw. Share your thoughts below. Thanks for tuning in. Let's be excited for Metroid, and I'll see you guys next time.